Good morning, students. Let's see the topic to be continued in the sixth chapter, Human Respiratory System. So, actually, in the human, you have to see the lungs and the other part of the organs. The lungs and other part of the organs that help get the oxygen and carbon dioxide out of the body. So you have to see this thoracic cavity. It's a section of a human body enclosed by the rib cages and separated from the abdominal cavity. Separated from abdominal cavity by the diaphragm. So this is a diaphragm. You have to see. Okay. So the respiratory system actually includes what are the parts from the external nostril and nasal cavity and the pharynx, throat of the pharynx and the larynx and bronchi, trachea, bronchi and subdivided into bronchioles and the air sac of at the terminal end of the bronchioles, alveoli and in the lungs region. So these parts starting from the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting zone. So the nostril cavity to the bronchioles conducting zone. And the bronchioles and the alveoli ducts is called the respiratory zone. So these two type of the major parts humidify and warms the incoming air. So actually what did he mean the conducting zone and the respiratory zone? Conducting zone means it's a most of the respiratory tract conduct gases into and out of the lungs. Into and out of the lungs. This is called conducting zone. But excludes the respiratory zone as exchanging gases. So this exchange gases happening in bronchioles, alveoli duct region and alveoli. This part we are named as respiratory zone. Respiratory zone consists of bronchioles, alveolar ducts and alveoli. So is this site of the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange with the blood. So conducting zone, it's begin with the nose and nasal cavity and trachea and is the part of the conducting zone. This or we are named as part of the conducting zone and it branches of the bronchi. Okay, and bronchioles. So you have to see this root of the gases inhale and exhale process respectively happening in this pathway. This is called a conducting zone. So major, you have to see this major respiratory structures functionally. The respiratory system can be divided into two types. What are they? Conducting zone and the respiratory zone. What separate the upper and lower respiratory system? You have to see upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract and is in which one separate from upper and lower respiratory tract. The only one in the epiglottis. So this is only one in the epiglottis. So this thin elastic flap tube-like structures of the epiglottis is separated by the upper and the lower respiratory tract. So what is the lower respiratory tract? Consists of trachea and bronchi, bronchioles and in the alveoli duct region and alveoli. So these structures pull in air from upper respiratory tract, absorb the oxygen and release the carbon dioxide in exchanging process. Okay, so this is we are named as a conducting zone. What are the benefits of the conducting zone? Conducting zone, what did you mean? So அப்படின்னா என்ன அப்படின்றதான் பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கோம். The major function of the conducting zone are provide a route from the incoming air, provide the route for incoming and outgoing air, and also to helpful to remove the pathogens from the incoming air and warmth and humidity the incoming air. Several structures, respiratory structures within the conducting zone perform other functions is also. Okay, va? Conducting zone means what are the parts? Nostrils, nasal cavity, and the throat of the pharynx, and the larynx, and the bronchi. The bronchioles and the alveoli duct and the alveoli we are named as respiratory zone. So actually zone means exchanging gases from inside to outside, incoming and the outgoing. So this type of the exchanges we are named as two major part of the functions happening in the respiratory tract, conducting zone and the respiratory zones. Okay, va? So you have to see this. The next one, part of this conducting zones, part of the conducting zone, this parts starting. So these are all the parts, respiratory system of the all the parts starting from the external nostrils to up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting zone. Various alveoli and the ducts region called respiratory zone. ஸோ இப்போ நீங்கள் வாட் இஸ் த டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் இன் பிட்வீன் த கண்டக்டிங் ஜோன் அண்ட் த ரெஸ்பிரேட்டரி ஜோன் வந்து உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும். அப்பர் ரெஸ்பிரேட்டரி ட்ராக்ட் ஃபுல்லி கண்டக்டிங் ஜோன் பாசஸ் த கேஸஸ் ஃப்ரம் ஃப்ரம் atmosphere to in the trachea and from the lungs to the atmosphere. So the exchanging gases. So the parts of the conducting zone humidify and warms the incoming air. In the human beings, air is actually entered from the upper respiratory tract through the external nostrils. So air is passing through the nostrils is filtered by thin hair is present, and also the mucus lining of the epithelial layer is also present. So this mucus secretion is also helpful to prevent the pathogens allowing enter into the body. So the external nostrils which is leads into the nasal chamber which opens into the nasopharynx, throat of the nasopharynx, and this nasopharynx which opens through glottis, epiglottis of the larynx region in and into the trachea. So this pathway, the ciliated epithelial cells lining the trachea, bronchi and bronchioles secrete mucus. This mucus secretion is very helpful to the trapped the pathogens and dust particles to prevent allowing enter into the body, enter into the lungs region mainly. So this mucous membrane you have to see inflamed lining of the bronchial tube. You see this structure, narrowed airway, this pathway, and this yellow color you have to see mucus. It's a wax substance. Mucus நம்மளோட நோஸில் செக்ரேட் ஆகக்கூடிய wax substance and the earல செக்ரேட் ஆகும். Okay, and other parts of the human body is also secrete in the mucus. So the mucous membrane lining the airway contains goblet cell which secrete mucus. So mucus secrete ஆகுது அப்படின்னாலே அங்கே அதில் என்ன இருக்கணும், epithelium lining லேயரில் goblet cell இருந்தால் தான் mucus secrete ஆகும். So this mucus மெட்டீரியல் ரிச் இன் கிளைக்கோப்ரோட்டீன், அதில் என்ன அதிகமாக இருக்குது அப்படின்னா கிளைக்கோப்ரோட்டீன் அதிகமாக இருக்கும். Micro organism dust particles attach in the mucus and carried upward to passing down the gullet region. Passing down means what ma? Passing down means it's a உணவு குழாயின்னு சொல்லுவோம், gullet. Okay, so while you have to see during the normal slowing time, சாலோயிங்னா நம்ம சாப்பாடை விழுங்குறது அப்படி தானேப்பா. ஸோ சாலோயிங் டைம் நார்மல் engulfing or swallowing the food particles from the from the mouth region to the stomach region. So during the swallowing yeah, swallowing the food molecules, a thin elastic flap. Blue color தெரியுதா? So this is epiglottis. Thin elastic flap tube like structures. This is called epiglottis. This one is main functions, perform functions as well. Prevents the food from entering into the larynx and avoids choking of food. In the upper respiratory tract. Upper respiratory tract போகாத அளவுக்கு ப்ரிவென்ட் பண்ணக்கூடிய ஒரு எலாஸ்டிக் ஃப்ளாப் டியூப்லெக் ஸ்ட்ரக்சர்ஸ் தான் எபிக்ளாட்டிஸ். இட்ஸ் மெயின்லி ஃபங்க்ஷன் டூரிங் த சாலிங் டைம். அதாவது சோக்கிங்னா புறையேறது. ஓகேவா? ஸோ த ட்ரக்கியா, நெக்ஸ்ட் பிக்சர் வி ஹாவ் டு சி ட்ரக்கியா. This is the lining of the epithelial layer. Air passage tract fully presents ma ciliated epithelium layer. Next we have to see the structures trachea. It's a semi-flexible supported to the multiple cartilaginous rings is present. So this cartilaginous rings is extends up to the mid-thoracic cavity and at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra, where it divides into right side and left side primary bronchi. Right side and left side. This is a right side, this is a left side. So divided into two branches of the bronchi. And one branches of the bronchus enter into the each of the lungs, right or left. So within the lungs region, the bronchi further it can be divided into terminal end of the that is repeatedly divided into secondary and tertiary. Secondary divided, further it can be tertiary divided. We are called bronchioles. So this bronchioles is have C-shaped curved cartilaginous plates to ensure the air passage does not collapse or burst as the air pressure changes during the breathing. So during the breathing time in our respiratory tract, this C-shaped curve of the cartilaginous rings will also helpful to not collapse or bursting in when it is high level of the air pressure in this trachea tube. Okay, this is a main function done in the main function by cartilaginous rings. And the bronchioles, you have to see the secondary and tertiary bronchioles without cartilaginous rings. Bronchioles are without cartilaginous rings. They have rigidity that prevent them from collapsing but are surrounded by smooth muscle and contract or relaxes to adjust the diameter of the airways. This is a main function done in by the bronchioles and in the cartilaginous rings. You have to see fine respiratory bronchioles terminate into highly vascularized walled pouch like called air sac. So this is a air sac pa. So air sac is a main thing you have to see. So air sac means pouch. It's a vacuum pouch. சரியா பை போன்ற அமைப்பு. So this is called alveoli. Alveoli is main done in function gaseous exchange. So the alveoli has the thin transparent layer that is diffusion membrane facilitate to diffuse process. It can facilitate to diffuse process benefits of the gases exchange. ஓகே கேஸ் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் பண்ணக்கூடிய அளவில் டிரான்ஸ்பரண்ட் லேயராக வந்து ஆல்வியோலை வந்து இருக்கும் அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. வெரி வெரி தின் ஸ்குவாமஸ் எபித்தீலியல் செல்ஸ் ஆஃப் த ஆல்வியோலை அண்ட் endothelial layer of membrane of alveolar capillaries and basement substances found in between them. என்னென்ன இருக்குது அப்படின்னு நம்ம பார்த்தோம் அப்படின்னா thin squamous epithelium cells இருக்குது. Outer layer thin squamous epithelial cells of the alveoli and the endothelium of the alveolar capillaries and another one basement membrane found in between them. ஒன்றுக்கு இடையில இருக்கும். Thin squamous epithelium cells of the alveoli composed of type 1 and type 2 cells. Two type of cells வந்து made up of the membrane of the alveoli. அதில் first one நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா type 1 type first cell வந்து you have to see very very thin Type 2 cells thicker. So the type 2 cells secrete the substances, synthesize or secrete the substances we are named as commonly surfactant. This is very important. Two more question. What is surfactant? So you see the human body, the lungs, human body respiratory system is lined with a mucous membrane that secrete mucus. Already we know. Mucus trap the small particles like pollen or smoking or any dust particles, pathogens. So hair-like structures called cilia line the mucous membrane and the move particles trapped in the mucus out of the nose. Okay, va? Check. So you have to see this human being lungs. The lungs are light, very lightweight, spongy tissues made up of spongy tissues, which is enclosed by the rib cage in the thoracic cavity, surrounded by airtight space. So thoracic cavity is bound dorsally by the vertebral column. Dorsally அப்படின்னா மேற்புறம், நமக்கு வந்து முதுகுப்புறம். ஸோ dorsal side and ventral side வந்து sternum சொல்கிறாங்க. So ventral side by the sternum and dorsally by the vertebral column. Dorsal side vertebral column முதுகெலும்பு இருக்கும் and ventral side வந்து sternum இருக்கும் அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. Okay, lateral sideனா side region. So the side region வந்து by the rib cage is present, and on the lower side of you have to see dome shaped of a diaphragm is present, which is separated from the lungs and the stomach region, abdominal cavity. Lungs are covered by double walled pleural membrane. Lungs are covered by the double walled pleural membrane. Pleural membrane has the two type of the layers fill up the pleural fluid. So this fluid is reduces the friction when the lungs expand and the contract. Main function done in the main function of the pleural fluid reduces the friction, உராய்வு தன்மையை வந்து குறைக்கும். எப்போ அப்படின்னா lungs when in expand time under the contracting time. So expand means what? Air is pushing into outside, and contracting time air is inhale. So air is inhale and exhale process, whether it is expand under the contract process. Okay, ma? You have to see this. Lungs are covered by double-walled pleural membrane containing several layers of elastic connective tissues. Capillaries encloses pleural fluid. This fluid reduces friction when the lungs expand under contraction.